is time for the movie reviews. We've got 6 for you, folks, and they're burning up the screen. Some are off of the big screen, some are strictly on streaming, but whenever this reaches you, you should try and see it wherever you can. So our first film we're going to talk about is Late Night with the Devil, written and directed by Colin Cairns and Cameron Cairns, and it stars, why does he have to have such a long last name? David Dastmalchian, who plays a talk show host in the 1970s, who's being killed in the ratings. So he decides to have a supernatural kind of guest where he's going to talk to a girl who has supposedly been possessed numerous times, and he's going to bring on a psychologist who insists that this doesn't exist and it's fake, and will offer, I think it's a $1,000 check or $10,000 check to anybody who can truly fool him. And we see how the show that night goes, as well as we're giving little hints into the talk show host's past, you know, his marriage, his recently deceased wife, his strange man's club membership, and we see behind the scenes. And it's shot all, faux documentary style. So a lot of handheld. And I have to say, this was a movie I knew I was going to like going into it. So it wasn't disappointing or like I hated this. I thought it was an interesting premise. I stayed entertained throughout. I kind of guessed where it was going halfway through, but it still kept my interest. Has one of the cruelest endings of a movie I've seen in a while. That is, as far as a supernatural film, not emotionally. But I have to say, I really enjoy. I compliment its ingenuity, which I'm liking in a lot of independent horror films, is the creativity you see on screen. I thought it was a very wise choice to do it as a faux documentary and not shot normal. And I know a lot of people are complaining about like the CGI, but that's mostly film nerds. It's not like the audience like, wait, that's CGI. They've ruined it for me. So I enjoyed the film. It's nice to see David in a leading role, instead of always playing the supporting or the weird guy, in the film. I thought I recognized the guy who played his like sidekick band leader. I thought that was Nia Vardalos' husband, Ian Gomez, but it is not. I really enjoyed the film for the time period, for it being a horror film. It's intense. I will say, even though it premiered on Shudder, this was something I wouldn't have minded seeing on the big screen. So you could be in that kind of universe. But I definitely would say I really liked it. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Death Watch, which was a British television show about a haunted house. Kind of reminded you a little bit of that, but this is much more darker. But I definitely would recommend this movie. Andre, how did you feel about Last Night with the Devil?
Yeah, I really dig the premise. I like the idea, 1970s talk show, all this shit that goes crazy. I mean, pretty much from the poster and the trailer, I knew that's where it was headed. I agree, especially the CGI, I think they could have done without. I think it could have still been creepy if they had kept it all practical. But taking that nitpick aside, and even the fact that apparently some of it was done AI, and I know that got people up in arms, I thought the premise worked good. I thought David, can't pronounce his last name, I thought he was excellent. Even the guy who played the skeptic, I thought was really good, especially the part where he tries to hypnotize his co-host and he starts having like the worms come out of his stomach. And, oh, no, you don't have worms. No, but I really felt it. Like, I was going nuts. That was cool. I like the psych outs that they did in there, and especially at the end with that messed up ending. So yeah, just the way it was shot, even like how creepy it got, like when the broadcast goes off and the thing starts peering out from the static, that actually did freak me out a little bit. So yeah, I give this a recommendation.
Okay. And that is Last Night with the Devil on Shudder currently. And Next, we have a film that we both saw. I saw it in theaters. You saw it at home. Love Lies Bleeding, but directed by Rose Glass, who also directed a movie I loved called Saint Maud. This is kind of you didn't know what to expect, even with the trailer when you see this film, but it's more of like a crime pulp type of film where it's about a female bodybuilder who's trying to enter a competition who gets work in this town, and she falls in love with Kristen Stewart, who is, a lesbian in this town and has like an obsessive, I don't know, girl who has crush on her. And then we slowly find out that Kristen Stewart is the daughter of this, I guess, a local crime boss in this town who owns everything. And Dave Franco is his son, who already is screwing around on his wife and had sex with the bodybuilder to get her a job working at this club. And then something happens to Dave Franco's character, and the two characters have to kind of clean it up and away from Ed Harris's character. And then there's a third act where magical realism comes in out of nowhere that was never shown before. But this film I really enjoyed because I saw it opening day. So I'll admit, I'm not the biggest Kristen Stewart fan. But I thought she was impressive as this like kind of dirty 1980s lesbian who's like so in love with this female bodybuilder. And Kate, I believe the actress is named Katie O'Brien. Jesus, she is sexy and huge. And I like in the film, she just seems to have this inhuman strength and seems to get bigger. Like if they were casting She-Hulk, there you go.
I'm shocked she was not cast as She-Hulk.
Exactly, but the whole thing is, even though at first it seems like more of a gimmick, the whole bodybuilding, you really start to feel for her character, and she has dramatic chops, and you even get sort of a backstory that's not fully explained for her character that comes in glimpses. And it's the same thing with this family, though they're a little more explained. But even the scene when late in the film and Jenna Malone, who Kristen Stewart was trying to protect, comes around and is like, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. That was such a shocking, fucked up moment in the film. And Daisy, her character just alone.
Oh, man.
It's just Jesus. It is definitely worth watching. It's surprising. That's why I'm trying not to talk too much about the plot, because it's one of those films, the less you know, the better the film is for you. But it kind of reminded me, even though this is way better than that movie, but what was it? After Dark, My Sweet, with Jason Patrick and I forget who. Jennifer.
What, Robin Wright in it? Or was it Rachel Ward?
It was Rachel Ward.
Okay.
And Man of the Hour, Bruce Dern. But yeah, it kind of had that kind of grittiness to you. It's not as sad though. But, even the scene when she goes crazy at the bodybuilding competition, it's just, I think this is definitely a film that will be talked about in the future once more people see it. Andrea, what did you think of Love Lies Bleeding?
So when I think about Love Lies Bleeding, I almost make it like that and Drive Away Dolls are almost like companion pieces to each other, the same kind of like almost road movie type of feel. One's not really a road movie, but just, the dynamic of the two women.
Mm-hmm.
And this is clearly the better movie than Drive Away Dolls by far. I mean, I was already kind of hooked when I first saw the poster of Katie O'Brien. I'm like, who the fuck is that? And I didn't put two together that she was on The Mandalorian, and there was like another movie she did that she had a significant role in. Oh, she was in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Oh, yeah.
So she was kind of like one of those people, and I think she was also on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for like a few episodes back in the day. So she was like completely under the radar because she always kind of had like very much, short hair and very much, dressed up, buttoned up. But here, she's all out. I mean, this is clearly the role that I think will probably define her career. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Kristen Stewart, I thought she was great in this. I thought they had good chemistry. I believed their relationship. I was with them. And especially when Katie O'Brien beats the living shit out of Dave Franco, I mean, I was definitely like all for that. And yeah, it is brutally violent. And just the fantasy sequences actually are so much better than what we got at Drive-Away Dolls. I mean, this was just like everything that's coming out of her head is literally like coming to life throughout this movie. The only issue I have, I'm all through everything that goes down, even like the girlfriend of Kristen Stewart that fucks everything up in midway through and then ultimately gets killed. Only thing I didn't really like was the ending, though. I having her, maybe because of the fact that it became this Deus Ex Machina moment of her going giant size and beating the crap out of Ed Harris. It was just like that kind of took it away from me. I thought maybe that could have been resolved more realistically, even though throughout we see like, you know, how absurd this whole thing gets. But I could actually put that aside, say, okay, you know, the ending may not work for me, but in terms of the emotions, the beats, the performances, I was all for it. And I certainly would give this a recommendation.
Yeah, I guess the ending goes a little sorry to bother you.
Yeah, it's a little much.
But like I said, I definitely think it's worth it. I love this movie. One of those films that I think was definitely overlooked.
Yeah.
You know, it should have been given. I'm wondering if maybe it was because Kristen Stewart was in it. People were like, you know, and Ed Harris with the best hair extensions in the business. I'm like, yo, this is definitely 1980s style. And Dave Franco with his weird faux hawk or what?
Yeah, like some kind of, you know, those mullets that the kids in the South used to have.
Yeah, so I was just like, okay, well, he looked like a piece of shit. So
yeah, he definitely was.
So next we go to that was Love Lies Bleeding, which we both recommend. Next we have Monkey Man. It's co-written, directed, and starring Dev Patel. And really the only other big name in the film is Shrito Copley as, I guess, the guy who runs the fights that he is part of. This is a revenge tale where Dev Patel plays a young man who, you know, from the streets after his mother was unceremoniously murdered. He basically spends his life growing up in the streets and planning this big revenge, and slowly, meticulously goes through it. And he also happens to be a professional fighter, but wears a mask and takes money to take dives. In this film, it's very inventive, but it's also a film that you can tell is a first film. It's, though it's better than a lot of people's first films. It's produced by Jordan Peele, and I like that we're given a revenge tale from another culture, and it's street culture, because one of the best scenes in the film is when the guy steals the woman's purse, and we see how it goes through so many different hands and traded till it gets to him. I thought that was one of the most inventive scenes of the film. The fight scenes I thought were going to be a little bit more impressive, but again, you're in such a closed space, you can only do but so much. But the fight in the bathroom, that was like perfectly colored, filtered, everything. I don't really have any bad things to say about the movie. I mean, you know, it felt a little overlong at times. Like I was wondering, is this Shrito Copley street fight thing gonna pay off eventually? Other than we know he has fighting skills, you know, and you know, even going into production, you hear so many stories about like how he broke his foot. He would always lose funding, like right before they need to shoot another scene. So obviously this was a labor of love. And I liked all the actors, the female who played his boss. I thought the love interest was very attractive.
Oh, yeah, wonderful.
I even liked the guy who was, I guess, kind of the drug dealer, kind of, I guess, he can get you whatever you need, man. And then towards the end, he has to go on the run because he's now associated with him. I like that who the villain ends up being, you know, when it's revealed. Yeah, I really wanted them to take that motherfucker down. But again, it was like one of those murder mysteries again, where you keep seeing commercials of this guy, and it's like, I wonder how this all ties in. And then when it's revealed, it's not that big of a surprise. So it's just like, okay, I'll take it. But yeah, I obviously like this film. I saw it opening day, so I was not disappointed in the least. It gave me everything I sought after. I just wish, like I said, the fighting scenes could have been a little better, but it also Dev Patel truly showed how much of a leading man he was here, and how good of a director he can be and writer too, because he took that old maxim: if you're not getting those roles, write it yourself, make it yourself. Because I was sitting here and I was like, yo, he could be Bond, and watching him in this film, if the Broccolis would give him a chance, which I doubt. But what did you think of Monkey Man?
I enjoyed it because Dev Patel, I've always been a fan of since Slumdog Millionaire. I think he was the second best character on the Newsroom next to Jeff Daniels, because a lot of those characters were annoying. He was one of a few likable ones. And, taking it from me, who's done a lot of acting and directing myself, it's not easy, and you get criticized a lot. Here, I think he really has the talent behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And this is like a completely different role for him to be an action hero. He got to amazingly ridiculous shape. He handles the fight scenes well, both visually and physically. And a really good story, as you said, where you really feel for this guy and you really hate the villain. And it's well cast, it's well shot, the locations all pretty much practical, straightforward. Again, another high recommendation. And I hope maybe for a sequel, but I hope maybe to see him maybe get a tentpole project. He's somebody I think can really excel in a bigger project of that kind of caliber.
Okay. Did you have a favorite scene?
That part in the casino where he starts fighting the guys off near the end, I think was pretty good.
Okay. And that is Monkey Man, written, starring, and directed by Dev Patel. Next, we come to a film that was kind of infamous. It came out during the holiday rush of last year, where they just seemed to be throwing films out. And one of them was Ferrari by Michael Mann, directed by Michael Mann, starring Adam Driver, Penelope Cruz, Shailene Woodley, and a barely recognizable Patrick Dempsey. This movie, how do I put it? I think Michael Mann has reached a certain age where the films and his characters, he more wants to watch the camaraderie amongst older men who are in power. And I think he wants to show the emotional things they go through and making big decisions. Because like watching this film, it's not really a biography of Ferrari. It takes place at a certain time in his life where we're informed of certain things in his past, but we're focusing on, him trying to like win this race, or his team to win this race, so that he can get out of financial debt. And at the same time, he's with his wife, who he's still with, but he also has, a side piece, as they say these days, who he has a child with, and she wants to know, can the child have his last name in its communion? And the film, it looks beautiful. Michael Mann obviously knows how to shoot, and he knows how to tell a story. The problem is this movie is dull. It's like watching a reenactment of a book that you were reading more for information in the first place. And you don't really get to know, the character, but half the time you're like, what about this character? What about that character? You wonder what's their importance in all of this. And then, the only scene and the most memorable scene is the crash near the end. That, is exciting. Now, if the film started like that, and then we go back to see how we got there, I think the film would have been a lot more interesting, But the way it was, I mean, this felt like House of Gucci 2. Like only the more dramatic version. Because, first of all, it's not her fault. Shailene Woodley's a great actress. Why is everybody here doing an Italian accent but her? And no offense, this might come as a personal thing, but Penelope Cruz looks so good in this movie. And you're like, you cheated on her with Shailene Woodley? Age? Is that the only lure, or because, she's blonde? I didn't understand. Not that Shailene Woodley's bad in it, but, I mean, she doesn't really hold her own that much as surprisingly Patrick Dempsey in the movie. But like I said, I think it's a good, it's a well-made movie, but I just felt like maybe it's like that horse racing drama series he made, where it's like, yeah, you seem to be the only one into this, you know. And I'm sure there is a crowd who's really going to enjoy this film, but unless it's on History Channel, I'm just like, this is kind of slow and dull to a certain extent. But that crash, that was fucking impressive and shocking. I did not expect that. And even just following his new driver, it wasn't that like interesting a story, you know. So anytime there was a car crash, it got exciting. And if you ever just want to know how Ferrari became the lucrative, you know, sports car of the elite, okay, this is a movie for you. But other than that, it's like, I can take it or leave it. What did you feel about Ferrari?
Yeah, I'm with you. Other than being happy about the fact that he shot on regular film as opposed to that digital Viper camera that I thought was just getting overdone and wasn't adding much after Collateral. Yeah, this was like watching paint dry, I'm sorry to say. I was really looking forward to it because I like Adam Driver. I'm a big Michael Mann fan, but this is not exciting. It was just like, and this has been the problem with Miami Vice, with Public Enemies, and with Black Hat. They are overlong, they are dull. It's just, Michael Mann likes to have his cake and eat it too as a writer and a director, but there was just nothing gripping about it. You know, like the whole interest of how Ferrari became Ferrari really didn't captivate me. There was nothing interesting about his affairs or any kind of conflicts he may have had. I was all into the cars. Like, I want to know about that. And I felt like just trying to do a straight biopic about the man wasn't really all that fascinating. So this is probably the one that I would say I don't recommend, unfortunately. Even though I think Michael Mann's done far better movies, this just ain't one of them.
While watching it, I kept thinking that I understand why they cast Lady Gaga in House of Gucci, but I was like, Penelope Cruz would have done better in that movie. And maybe they should have put Gaga in this, you know. But no, like you, I can't in my heart of hearts recommend it. It's not a bad movie. It's just so slow. And you just sit there and wonder, why did you make this movie? Why did this is one of those projects where I'm sitting where I'd ask the studio, why did you greenlight this movie? Was it just the behind the scenes, cast and director? Because I'm like, I can see this movie being made in the 80s, but modern day, I'm shocked it got made. And it had to be just, we want to be on the Adam Driver train, And please, he's a great actor, but Adam Driver, stop playing Italians in movies that come out in the holiday season. I mean, Megapolis, I'm sure you're probably Italian there. You're Caesar. So it's just like, hopefully, though, Megapolis is the one that jumps the shark and will be better than the previous. Next, we have the big summer movies so far. And we're going to talk about The Fall Guy, directed by David Leitch, written by Drew Pearce, and starring Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Hannah Weddingham, Teresa Palmer, Stephanie Hsu, Winston Duke. I'm going to give you my conspiracy theory. I feel like as soon as Teresa Palmer was cast, this movie was doomed to bomb. Because anytime she's in a movie, it tends to bomb. The only thing she's been in that was really a hit was Lights Out. And that was an unexpected hit. And so that's just my conspiracy. I love this movie. It's a movie that's a love letter to not only the film industry, but also stuntmen. I expected the stuntman part, but I didn't expect the love letter to the movie industry in general with them showing the split screen shots where they're talking on the phone about how to make a scene better while doing it right there. Obviously the stunts were impressive. I even like that glow in the dark suit Ryan Gosling wears. I'll tell you the truth. This felt almost, without it being a buddy comedy, like this could have been a sequel to The Nice Guys. Because it has that same type of humor throughout the film, with Ryan Gosling being this professional but kind of bumbling through everything. The love story with him and Emily Blunt. the weird, stupid movie they're making. That's supposed to be her big project.
It's actually a remake of an actual movie made by Universal too.
Oh, jeez. Then no, sorry, Universal. This looks shit.
Ugh.
I after the movie, I wanted to get the glasses Hannah Waddingham was wearing throughout. I was like,
Cool.
yo, I know it's 80s, but yo, those are kick ass. Though, her turn was not that surprising. And because I'm like, why is she always drinking soda through a straw throughout this movie? Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I think is just David Leitch's Robert De Niro at this point, because he's always in his films, playing an idiot, basically here. An idiot star. Winston Duke, I guess, as the only friend he has. I thought Stephanie Hsu was going to have more to do in the film, considering, hey, she's Oscar nominated just like the rest of you here. But she worked in her few scenes that she was in. I originally thought Hannah Waddingham was going to be the boss from the Fall Guy series, who would always give them cases. So that turn was kind of surprising. I like that it maintained its humor throughout the action. I give it a thumbs up or high recommendation across the board. It's a film that I agree with all the critics. It should have been a hit. It should have been the movie everybody went to the weekend, went out to go see. My only criticism, I hate the remake of the theme song.
Yeah.
I like the Lee Majors and its original lyrics, and the weird cameo at the end. Like Heather Thomas. Wow.
Follows me on Twitter, and I say hello to Heather Thomas.
Yes, I was just and Lee Majors, who doesn't look as old as I expected him to look.
I didn't know he was 85. He doesn't look it.
Yeah, because I was like, that doesn't look like an 85-year-old as a cop. Though, no Howie.
Although the one weird thing about that cameo is, are they in Australia filming? So why is he an Australian cop?
It's a movie. That's what I'm going to say. Suspension of disbelief. Because do you want to see Lee Majors try to fake an Australian accent? Yeah, exactly. So, be glad with what you got. Though it would have been interesting to see him play the drug dealer. An 85-year-old drug dealer with tiger striped hair or leopard striped hair. I would have been like, you know what? This oddly works for me. Rather than that redheaded guy who's like, I don't know. All the villain henchmen should have just had terrorists written across them, because they all look like these do not look like regular security people. So that was the only part that bothered me. What is your overall impression of The Fall Guy?
I didn't grow up with the original TV show. I do remember when it was on, and the theme song, and then the end credits, the truck, Marky Post. I remember all that stuff. So I didn't go in this is a sacred cow, but I love the nods to the show. I loved it myself. Again, love letter to the stunt community. Ryan Gosling knocked it out the park. I love the scene in the club with, he's fighting the guys, everybody's glowing, and how cool that was. Or when he gets drugged and he's trying to chase the one guy out of the hotel. I thought that was really cool. I thought he had good chemistry with Emily Blunt, different kind of part for her. Not too different, but just enough that it's not like she's got to get into all these big fight scenes. It's just, she's trying to direct her damn movie, really. And, performances were all solid. It was very entertaining. I think honestly, the reasons I think it didn't do well, it was down to the marketing. The marketing made it seem like it was a very average flick, when it really has the feel of a movie you have to see on a big screen. And it did that. I also think that maybe for people who thought the whole movie was going to be Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt were probably disappointed, because there's a whole middle section where they're not together. It's like that whole scene where she's playing karaoke while he's doing that car chase, is like, as much as they get split up all throughout the movie, and then they really don't get back together till the end. So I guess maybe people thought this was going to be like The Lost City, and this is not The Lost City. And I agree with you 100%. Stephanie Hsu was wasted in this. I expected her to play a bigger part, and it was just like she had like one or two scenes, and that was it. Like, really? She just got an Oscar nomination. She was in probably one of the best movies 2 years ago, and you give her like a side part. What the hell were you thinking this day? You know, I would have probably not the Hannah Witting part, but maybe like something a little bit more significant. She could be like a PA on the set of or be the assistant of Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
That would have made more sense. And thank God Winston Duke is in a part that's way better than Spencer Confidential. Because, he's definitely playing the Douglas Barr character, just with a different name. And, the other thing I like about Gosling playing Cold Seavers is that typically a movie like this, you would think he would have like the ambition of wanting to be a star. He doesn't have that. Like, he just does his job. Like, this is what he does for a living, and he just goes with it. And because of like that loose kind of laid back way about it, I really like his take on Cold Seavers, where I think the original show, he was more like a Burt Reynolds type. Here, he's even more like Burt Reynolds for this day and age. So yeah, huge recommendation. I think more people need to see this movie. Don't let the marketing fool you. I would even say right now, while it's in theaters, go see it in the theater and support this movie.
I agree.
And the stunt community should get an Oscar nod.
They will eventually. But the only other nitpick, is that if he hurt his back so dramatically in the beginning, how's he able to do all this other stuff now and not ever like complain or get hurt about it? But that's just a nitpick. So now we are on to our final review of this episode, and it is, you all should know by now, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, written and directed by George Miller, starring Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Hemsworth, and Tom Burke. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you, I like the film. Obviously, I enjoyed Fury Road more, but that was more of a beginning to end action film. This is more of a we're still building that world. So I enjoyed the film for what it was. I mean, there's a lot more drama to it all than action this time around. I would say think of it as it's the Mad Max to the Road Warrior, if you need a comparison. I love a movie anytime flamethrowers vigorously used throughout. So I was already like, you got me. I enjoyed the whole first like 20 minutes of this film, where it was basically Furiosa being kidnapped and her mother going and following and trying to get her back. And oh my God, Carly, I didn't write her name down, but the woman who plays Furiosa's mother, beautiful. She was in Anyone But You last year, and here she's Furiosa's mother, and she handles herself well in the action scenes, the dramatic scenes. This is what the heroines in Wonder Woman were supposed to be like, just so badass and cool as female warriors. One thing I don't believe she would have let that woman live, but we had to have somebody sound the alarms. And I think the movie builds its own world. It's not as maybe entertaining as Fury Road, but I think it's a damn good film, and the action sequences are kick-ass. Tom Burke, who I remember from the movie The Souvenir, was unrecognizable to me because he was bulked up here, in a role that was originally supposed to be played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I don't know why he dropped out from filming, but, he was kick-ass. We have Morty and Joe coming back. We have the guy who gives birth to the babies. I forgot his character's name. We have, the 7 wives. And I don't know why everybody seems to be inbred in this town, though. And Chris Hemsworth, good in the film. What was with the nose? Why did they give him that nose? He can't be good-looking Chris Hemsworth. I feel somewhat like maybe he should have played Max in the last movie, and Tom Hardy should have played the role here. But I enjoyed the film. I loved his 3 motorcycle chariot, the history man with all the tattoos on him. what are those, the Bullet Boys or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was good from beginning to end. I just have to say I had a bad film experience watching this because there were no trailers with my show. So it started exactly at 3:00. They played the first 15 minutes, but then I guess people who are so accustomed to coming in late or coming in after the trailers complained. So they restarted the movie. So we had to watch the first 15 minutes all over again. And this is a over 2-hour film, by the way. So that, and this new thing where I just go to a movie, buy my tickets, not that early, only by a few days, specifically because I don't want to sit next to anybody. And then I go to a movie and somebody ends up sitting next to me. It's like, what the F? Like, why and I can see if it was a sold out show, there's plenty of seats in the row. All he has to do is move over one. But no, doesn't. And so I'm giving this a good positive review, even with a bad experience. So, Andre, what did you think of Furiosa?
So here's my thing. If I have to give it a recommendation, I give it a mild recommendation. I'll tell you why. On the plus side, I mean, George Miller, to do what he's doing at his age is still so impressive and so inspiring. He still could craft those action sequences with such amazing skill and just, consistent with the tone of the previous Mad Max movies. He really continues to knock it out the park. And I think Anya Taylor-Joy worked really well to be playing the younger version of Charlize Theron as Furiosa and going through her journey. Chris Hemsworth, I think, is the best role he's ever played, quite hands down. Yeah, I think he really steals the show. Where you let the guy do his native accent, you let him go loose. He really delivers like a charismatic performance. Now, there were times I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I think he fit that world perfectly. And yeah, the nose was a bit much. He was still great. And even the knockoff Mad Max guy you were talking about was actually not bad. Just his death was kind of weird, though. Like, they kind of left that open-ended with the dogs. I just, that struck me a little bit wrong. Those are the pluses. Here's the problem, though. I feel it was a bit too long because there were parts where I think I just was starting to drift off and almost fall asleep on it. The longer it took, especially Anya Taylor-Joy doesn't really come into this movie until like the second hour. That it's like they spent most of that time with her as a young child and put more focus on Chris Hemsworth and all the destructive shit he does to her life, and it felt like it was a bit much. I think I wanted to get into that action a little bit quicker than just this overlong thing of how she got separated from her mother. And then the other issue was, I think it relied too heavily on the CGI at points. It takes away from what made the Road Warriors so memorable. And I know there was some CG done in Fury Road, but it still at times didn't feel like he had to lean heavily on it. It felt like this time he went heavy on the CGI with a lot of the truck chase sequences near the end. And those are my nitpicks. I also just think in general why I think this movie didn't do well. No, it's not because, it's a female boss lead. That's not the problem. I don't know who was screaming for a prequel specifically about the beginnings of Furiosa. I think more people would have wanted to see another Mad Max in the Wasteland story, continue with Tom Hardy, because there's really not much to say about how she got to working with Immortan Joe and the Seven Wives. Like, nobody was really interested in like doing the Star Wars prequel story of Furiosa. They want to know what's the next story for Mad Max. And I think that is what kept people out. Now, I do recommend if you're going to see it in the theater, it is worth the experience for that, especially for the action sequences. But if you chopped it up a little bit and maybe if you got more quicker into the Anya Taylor-Joy part of Furiosa, I think it could have been a slightly better movie. I don't think it's terrible. It just was maybe not like the hype that all the critics make it out to be.
Well, I think when it came to Furiosa, I think it was definitely hyped before you go see it because it's a good film, but it's not as good as some of these critics are saying. But here was my thing with Furiosa, supposedly he had written this script first. But obviously, if you're going to reboot something, you have to have Mad Max in it. So
Yeah,
that's why he went with Fury Road or filmed Fury Road first. So I think this was always, in his plan to make the film. Because if he ever gets the Wasteland made, that will probably be, like the final, and it'll be a Mad Max story. So let's get Furiosa. Nobody wants to see like, oh, Furiosa will be the last tale we write, her origins. I was a little bit confused because going with the theme of this week or these episodes, one of his sons tries to assault young Furiosa, and then she escapes by cutting off her hair, and all of a sudden, like acting like a boy. But yet, they seem to all know it's Furiosa, even though she's supposed to be one of the wives. So I was like, why was that allowed? And then why, towards the end, when she comes in with the long hair, like, did they know this the whole time, or is this their first acknowledgement? Like, you're a girl. And there's no I guess there's nothing. They don't come back to like the big guy and his weirdly trying to assault her. Like there's no repercussions, no discussion of it. It's just there. So I found that a little strange. But like I said, I really enjoyed this film. It wasn't like one of my favorites, but I really thought it's worth seeing. And I look forward to seeing the Chrome edition, the black and white, when it comes out on DVD, even though it won't be in theaters. I would have liked to see that version too, on the big screen. But I, for the most part, like it. I'll admit there's a little more long patches in this film because in Fury Road, it never feels like the camera ever stops moving. Here, you can tell when the camera has stopped moving. But other than that, I give it a recommendation. And that is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So really, the only testy one that we really talked about was Ferrari, where it's like, So as you know, that ends this week's business. But as you know, we always have unfinished business to tend to. And I have to ask you folks, have you seen I Saw the TV Glow? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome and it's still in theaters. Go see it. Do yourself that favor. Andre, what movie should the folks here go see?
have you seen Night of the Hunted? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome and it is on Shudder.
And that ends this episode. And until we see you next time, we bid you adieu.